I've just been on the HDN. Is it HDN? Yeah, Housing Diversity Network, London group this morning, and just waffled about don't collect EDI data unless you've got a purpose for it, as I do, and that the regulator doesn't say that you've got to collect it on. And then at the end, I realised that they'd actually introduced me as I was there to speak about data security.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I didn't really do security. The most secure data is data you've not collected.
Yes.
Mic drop.
Good cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is everyone getting on? What are you dealing with at the moment?
I have got a question, but being as
Yeah.
I kind of took over the last session, I'm happy to sit back. But we did get a win with the EDI data for household members. They're not collecting it. They're just collecting how many people are in the household and ages, but not recording it against anybody. So we did get that win. So it was worth it, that last session. Thank you.
That's good. That's good.
My question this session,
go on.
Yeah, if that's okay, is we've built some new properties.
Hmm?
Some are going to be rented and some are going to be shared ownership. I think there's 15 properties and 6 are built to the new assumed future standards that the contractor has assumed is going to be the standard because it's not being released. And in those properties, they've not decided yet if it's going to be 3 for rented or 3 for what the breakup's going to be.
Yeah.
But in these 6 properties, they want to put monitoring equipment in to monitor heat, loss of heat, all that sort of stuff. They say they're not collecting personal data.
Of course they do.
To check whether or not the future standard saves money on all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then put some monitoring equipment in the non-future standard builds to see how they compare. So I'm like, I don't know much about this technology. I won't have a smart meter in my house myself. So I just wondered if anybody had come across it. I've got a meeting at the end of the month about it all. So they are doing a DPIA as we speak.
Okay, good.
I'm just a bit like, wonder if anybody's come across that.
You've convinced them that they are collecting personal data?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are.
It doesn't have to be a name for it to be personal data. Yeah, I've told you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And behaviours possibly. Yeah, so we've had the likes of Switchy and things. And again, it's a DPI, but the key is around sort of behaviours. Does it identify some of the behaviours is one of the things to look out for. So heating goes off at a certain point every morning, off to work, back in from work, heating goes on. Shower every morning at this time. So that I think that's the bit that we've highlighted. We tried to anonymise so that the information coming back is numbered. So it's pseudonymised in a way to try and reduce that sort of impact. Switchy did actually, so I don't know which company using it, Switchy did actually go to the ICO themselves and have a DPIA with the ICO to do it. Because the first time I met them, they said, "Oh no, it's not personal data," and then they went to the ICO and went, "Oh, it is personal data. We've done a DPIA with them."
Yeah.
So Gary told you it was personal data.
It's a company called Alco, ALCO.
Yes.
Never heard of them.
I've heard of them as well. Yeah.
One of the ones. Yeah, I think it's just very clear on, make sure they're very, very clear on the purposes as to what they're doing and how you can, desensitize the data as much as possible. I think those risks, and it is difficult. Some of them depends on what the systems are they're using. I've had some that they've tried to connect to shower units for the hot water. And you're like, that's really going to take every time they take a shower. And you think that's okay. So we moved away from that. But they're GPS trackers in them as well, you see, in some of them. So does
GPS trackers in.
Does GPS locate? So in the actual tools themselves, some of the tools have GPS locators in them. So they know which property it's in. So it's something else to just be mindful of is how are they getting the information?
Exactly where it is, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I've thought about, I've thought about habits and behaviours, like you said, Gary, was so taking one of these properties, they want to make it a condition of the tenancy that if you take one of these properties, you agree and accept that this is going to be in there. And I'm not sure how we're going to, I've not looked into it. They only mentioned it to me the other day. That makes me feel quite uncomfortable. For example, someone's on a priority list or a domestic violence abuse person who's been moved to that property under a priority through a council. I thought, are we going to refuse them that property because we don't want that monitoring equipment? It seems a bit unfair. They've not said that's what they're going to do, but they have said we're going to tell tenants if they sign for this property, it will have this equipment in. And I'm like, oh, that does not feel quite right to me.
Does that work in terms of like housing regulations?
I don't know.
For social housing,
I was going to say
the social housing, not the shared ownership, the rented tenancy.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to legal because, as I say, they only came to me Monday this week, and we've got a meeting towards the end of the month. But I think I'm going to check with our legal department because it's something, it doesn't sound quite right. But it's only a conversation. I need to see what they've actually wrote down and what is actually going to happen. But it sounds like they're going to say, you take this property with this equipment or you can't have it, which I don't know if we'd be able to do that.
But some of them can switch off.
Would they possibly use that information to try to demonstrate that it's a resident's fault for damp and mold?
That's not what they said the purpose is. They've said the purpose is, they're getting the word purpose now. The purpose is to compare the new build standard with the standards build standard at the moment to see if the future build standard is worth the extra. If it does what it says on the tin for the extra money, or should they just stick to the regular building standard that they've been doing for the last X amount of years?
Won't the new standard come in as a legal requirement soon anyway?
I would have thought so. But this, I know I sound a bit like I don't know what I'm on about, because that's because I don't.
Well, they don't tell you. No, they don't tell you all the ins and outs.
No.
And then the other thing to consider, sorry, you go.
I say that the purpose sounds more like for the sustainability recording, doesn't it? Because I know that's part of the sort of the new environmental responsibilities that we have. So it kind of explains it, but it's
Gary.
Well, Jo will put it more eloquent than me when she jumps in next, but I think that's no pressure. But for me, it's the sustainability. It's that how do you evidence the quality of the properties are approachable? But again, that's the trick about how do you balance that with the privacy and the rights of the individual in the property. But there are some that you can switch them off if there's an issue. So it wouldn't stop you having the tenancy, but it would stop you recording the information. You could switch it off. They could just, some of them are plugins. They could just switch the plug off. Ultimately, it's nothing.
You turn it off.
Yeah. So there's a prefer not to say option. By go and click.
But then if they're saying you've got to have it as part of the tenancy, are they going to say you've got to keep it turned on? What lawful basis do they think they're basing that on? Is it consent or contract? Yeah. But like Jo says, a contract clause, you can't just stick anything you want in a contract. No. It's got to be a fair tenancy clause. Yeah. You can't just say, oh, and you've got to stand on your head once a week as well.
Receive all this direct marketing.
Yeah.
Throw that in there while we're at it.
Yeah. What was the company you used, Gary? Sorry, I can't.
Switchy is one of the ones we looked at.
Switch.
Yeah. Switchy.
Just switch and then 2 E's on the end.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
So one of the things I was thinking about is these tools nowadays have AI capabilities. So to make sure it wouldn't have the machine learning AI capabilities, or how are you going to manage that? And also about purpose, how you enforce that, because we all worked with people, especially technology, who like to add purposes on afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, and it can do this. Oh, and it can do that. But still, as well, that purpose, I'm not convinced that
is enough.
Well, that it makes sense. So have we got a purpose paradox here? Are they saying, oh yeah, this is the purpose, but actually that's not a purpose that is valid? Like,
because if the standard
comes in anyway,
it's coming in, so whether or not it makes a difference or it doesn't is irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But if it's, if it's coming in anyway, why do they need to do the testing to prove, like, the comparison? Is it something to do with funding maybe later down the line? I don't know. There could be something. I would want them to, for me, walk through the whole process. So not so much just the data collection bit, but everything. Like, then what? Yeah. Well, we'll compare the new build to the old build. Okay, then what? And how long is this timescale? Are you going to compare for 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades? How long are you going to do this for? And it's that, so what? So what then? So you'll get some data. So what?
Yeah.
Is it a problem if people turn it off like Gary's telling them to? Is it a problem if, like you said, somebody wants to move into that property, but they're fleeing domestic abuse? I can just imagine, and this is just me being really sceptical, but I can imagine there being a conversation about how, well, we've got to turn that person's off because they're fleeing domestic abuse. Write that on the tenancy agreement.
Yeah, write it on the notes.
Put it on the CRM. Put it on the. Oh, I can just imagine. Yeah, that's just me being really negative. But I can just imagine.
Number 7. There we go.
I think.
Tick.
Yeah.
I think I was thinking pretty much along the lines of what everybody said, so I'm just going to do a bit of preparation before that meeting and see what it says on the DPIA. But thank you for your comments.
I've got another question as well, though, for you to think about and to ask them. Now, did you say ICO that you're using, AICO?
Yes.
So they've got an app, and they give the app users their own privacy notice, as if they're the controllers. But who's the controller? Who's the processor? Same with Switchy as well. Same question to you there, Gary. I don't know if there's an app there or.
I'll have to remember this was about 4 years ago. have to refresh my memory.
The controller processor issues.
Yeah.
I've made a note of that. I'll be doing this
because they were acting like they were a controller.
Yes, Switchy were classing as processor, I think.
Yeah, in the contract, so I've seen an ICO contract that says we're a processor, and then when they go and do the actual fitting, they hand the tenant a privacy notice that's an ICO privacy notice.
It should be our privacy notice, shouldn't it? If it's a.
So just to be aware of that, and keep us posted.
Yes, Switchy did a legitimate interest. Switchy did a legitimate interest assessment with the ICO.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing it on legitimate interests.
Yeah. So, which is why you can switch the stuff off.
I was going to say, which means you can object and you can opt out. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I reckon they'll go with consent. That seems to be the common theme here.
Don't want to do consent with
They won't go with consent, but they will. No. That's what they'll try.
That's what they'll try, but you won't let them. Good.
I won't let them go with consent. Yeah. Is it consent or public task? I don't think they know that there's many other lawful bases.
Yes, we won't do consent pleas with tenants. Thank you. Oh dear. Oh,
right. Maybe for Pekka.
Yeah, for Pekka. Yeah, but not
maybe for Pekka. We'll do it.
Yeah, we will do it for Pekka. Or we just won't, and we'll just send emails, and we'll just put this is a service email. Anyway, I'm very sceptical today. I'm very, very cynical. Unlike most days. There was a question that I sent in an email to you all yesterday, actually, that I would like to ask you on behalf of the person, unless anyone's got another question right now. Oh, need to remind myself. It was about SARS, and that crossover between SARS and
disrepairs.
Yes. So do you include property surveys in your SARs? So there was a learning from maladministration report from the Housing Ombudsman in February. And one of our DiSH members had their director, or our director, it's not their director, our director, tell them they should send more property information with the DSARs. And it's somebody who's not really involved in DSARs, but they're involved on the customer side. And so they've gone, right, because of this report, they think it was because of the findings that were highlighted in the report was a landlord, Together Housing, failed to provide copies of damp and mould survey reports to a resident when they asked for them. It wasn't a SAR, they asked for the reports. And the landlord said no, and then the Ombudsman got involved and they said they should have. It seems to suggest that they should have shared the reports with the resident. Like so many of these reports, it's kind of, you're trying to get the learning from it. So they kind of tell you what the takeaways that they want you to have, but then they don't give you too much details of what actually happened. But it seems to be saying that they should have shared the reports with the resident, and there's no mention of it being a DSAR, just a request for the report. Is that something you've considered? Is it something that you do? If you had a DSAR, would you be putting lots of property information in with it? Was the question.
So we currently do, because it's linked to the customer's profile, the information. But we are actually working with legal to work out what are they providing as part of their disrepair thing, so that we can say that you've already been provided it. Because it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, because you'd have to review it all and redact if appropriate. And okay, yeah. Sam?
So if we get a DSAR disrepair, because when I first arrived here in January, they seemed to get a lot more than what I was used to. So what we do, and what I used to do in my previous company, we used to ring the customer and say, you've had a DSAR request through a solicitor or whatever, and they're asking for a copy of all your information. Do you want us to provide that to the solicitor, or is it really just the property information you require under the disrepair? And I'd say half and half. Some say, oh, just send everything. And the other half say, oh, no, don't send my personal information there about my rent and everything else, tenancy agreement, just the DSAR information. So we tend, for a SAR, even if they say, yes, send everything, we just do the personal data and the disrepair team send the property data.
Anyone else?
Yeah, we tend to send the information.
Sorry.
No, go on, Gary. It's fine.
We do tend to. That's an awkward time lag, isn't it? That you get. You pause and they go, oh, nobody's speaking, and then they're speaking once. We do tend to get both. What we're finding is a lot of combined letters from solicitors that we do disrepair claim plus SAR, and probably come November, December plus stair scheme request as well. So we will often go back and say, do you just want all the stuff for the disrepair claim? We'll just leave it at that, or do you want a SAR as well? If they say it, we have to do it, so we'll do the SAR, but we'll quite often combine the two, or we'll work with the disrepair team in terms of their content to make sure that we're redacting some of their stuff in there as well, potentially, because there might be some references in the disrepair stuff that they're not considering. So we do have a look at the stuff to make sure that no third-party details, for example, go out. But we have done damp and mold reports. We have done other surveys where we've deemed it's appropriate as part of the information, and some of that's about the conversation, the engagement with the individual to say, well, what is it? Is there something particularly looking for? Try and get the scope right. And if it's, well, I want this as well, you just kind of look at it and go, well, is it going to be more effort to get the disrepair team to send it than us just send it with the SAR?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of common sense and balancing, I think, attached to it to say, we're looking at transparency in housing associations. would that not be a transparent approach to try and do that? We don't do FOIs, but we'll respond to FOIs where it's appropriate and it's not excessive, for example. We're early adopters on that side. So it's not, hopefully, it won't be a huge rush when stairs arise, but I say that knowing full well that anybody with the word paralegal after their name is probably going to lob as much as they possibly can in. So he said cynically. I thought I'd pick up on the cynicism today with you, Claire.
Yeah, because you're not usually cynical.
No, not in any way. Realist. That's
realist.
But, you know, it comes from experience. I think, like all things, doesn't it? You're looking and go, well, we'll do it. We tend to find if you don't, you'll get a follow-up letter anyway that says, "Where's the survey?" So why not just put it in as part of the pack if you think that's what's needed. It's in some cases. In one case, I've actually done a quote as well, but redacted everything, but said because they were saying, "Well, where's the survey?" We didn't have a survey; we just had a quote. So he's kind of worked and said, "This is not because the accusation then becomes you're hiding stuff from us." Yeah. And that's not what we're trying to achieve with these things, obviously. But then, are we? Do people who request SARs actually request it for the purpose that a SAR was created? No. I don't think I've had one. I've never had a request that's gone. Oh,
but it's supposed to be purpose blind, isn't it? So
Joe's had one. Yay!
I've had one where it's actually genuine DSAR where they've actually wanted to check their data and then they send messages to amend it afterwards.
Oh, notification, lovely.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Lizzie, what are you finding in your?
Yeah, I think similar to everyone else, we send like contact history and repair logs, but usually we just do it from the time that they've been a tenant, to be honest, so we don't like backdate. And then we will send like reports to do with like that sort of like disrepair bit, but usually it's kind of like the solicitor will say, "Send me everything," and then we it's not that we like limit it, but we kind of have like a standard pack that we send the solicitor, and it's kind of worked so far for us. If they ask for more, we'll send it, sort of thing. But we're having a big problem with like getting consent or like from the actual customer. So the solicitor will send it and then they'll be like, "Oh, here's the signature," and it won't match what we've got. So we're like, "No, we're not sending this." And then we actually got one last week where they were like, "Oh, here's the consent," but the consent form said something like, "I consent for you to discuss my file with my solicitor." So I went back and I was like, "I'm not sending it because we're not. That's not a discussion." And then they kind of sent like a bit of an arsey reply back, but I was just like, "Well, we're not sending it without this. Does not work." But we are getting like loads of like that kind of like our big bulk disrepair, and it's relentless, to be honest. We get quite a few, like, when you not looked in your inbox for a while and then you go back in, like, oh, there they are. So yeah, there is it's not a great. I don't like them, but they're easier than standard SARs, but I still like they're quite a problem, aren't they?
Yeah, we got 15 of those in one day.
Yeah.
In one day from the same solicitors.
Yeah, we've had that before.
Are they going around and door knocking?
Yeah, and then they CC'd Devonshire's into it because Devonshire's were handling the disrepair, and Devonshire's went back and replied, "This isn't a SAR, you're just trying to use this for this reason." Basically saying we're not going to fulfill their SARs, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they do door knocking because when you like, there was one where I think it was like a similar number in like one day, and then I looked up the addresses and I was like, "Oh, that's convenient. They're all in this little radius," and it's like,
yeah. They're looking. Okay. Gary, hello.
I thought I'd counteract my risk of interrupting by raising my hand there. Safety first. It has brought up an interesting one that we've had recently where somebody's not come in and requested a SAR per se. What they've actually asked for is all the repair information on their property since its creation. Now they've tried to ask for it under Section 11 of the Landlord and Tenant Act, which actually talks about maintaining and repairing the property to a standard. It doesn't talk at all about providing information in relation to those repairs in the history. So we're kind of like looking again, why would we do that? But I'm interested in what people might think in terms of how they would view handling that type of request. Feasibly, it could fall under the stairs stuff in terms of management of the property. So what would people do?
And what kind of day you got me on?
It's interesting with the stairs thing because the law's out, but there's actually no guidance on how to do it. So does that mean technically residents are within their right to ask these things if the law is out?
I don't think it's live yet, though, is it?
It's not though, because it's the law that allows them to make stairs a thing is live,
Okay.
but they've not made it a thing.
Yeah.
That's a technical phrase. EDI, I think. I can't think of the proper words, but so the law allows them to go live on stairs, but they've not gone live on stairs.
It's not.
And they said they were going to do it last. Was it going to be last year? They said they were going to do it.
Well, it's
supposed to go live last year, wasn't it? And then
last year, and then spring of this year.
Then April. Yeah.
Spring it now appears to be November/December of this year. So, which I know is a bit late for spring, but you know.
Well, it's that climate change, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Adopting the HS2 timeframe. I think that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I suppose you would want to try and respond to it, and that seems to be going back to this Housing Ombudsman report that they were asked for the reports and they didn't give them to them. They should have just given it to them. So again, it's that kind of thing. Well, if we don't, is it going to just escalate, go to the Ombudsman? The Ombudsman's going to say, do it. Which we might want to do that because we might want to push it down the road a little bit. We might want a bit of breathing space. Or do we just do it now? I think it would depend on resources and
at the age of the property. If you've got to go back and do 120 years worth of repairs on that individual property, that could be. I think
they'll come under the 120 years worth of records.
No, I was just suggesting that as a sample.
But you wouldn't have 120 years worth of records, would you?
We would have but let's say it's got 30 years of records. That's still potentially quite
still a lot.
Will it then trigger the 18 hours cap that's currently on stairs, for example?
But we don't know if that is going to be a cap on stairs because we don't know that.
No. Yeah. As per the last consultation. That's still being referred to as we did that under Rishi Sunak government. Yeah. That's all it says on the consultation.
Yeah. This is from the Rishi Sunak government, kind of like nothing to do with us.
but it is
now. Is to do with you now. And what you've just said though reminded me of another one that I've just seen recently, which I thought would be interesting to share. So this is a private landlord had a SAR where the person has said, I want to see all my personal detail, or my personal data, which includes how you've spent the service charge that I contributed to. And I want to see everything to do with that. And that's all my personal data. So we've kind of gone back and said, look, there is a bit of it that they've got the similar sort of requirements as HAs do to be transparent about how they've spent their service charge. And he's had that before, and I'll give that to him again. And then carving that out and going, and the only other bit that is your personal data is if we have actually had any correspondence or discussions about you, which they haven't. There's maybe some emails where he's complained about the spending of the service charge. But yeah, I thought it was a very interesting, like when they first got it, they were like, oh, and I was like, no, look, this isn't his data, this isn't his data, this isn't his data. So just interesting to share.
We've had a similar one like that where they asked us to justify why they have a charge when we all work from home and the money, like for our office money, because we don't go in the office as much anymore, that why do we like do a service charge when we've got an office that isn't used and stuff? And that was under a SAR. We were just like, we don't have to justify who works from home and stuff, but we kind of just batted that one back, and I think it was okay.
Here's a full list of all our employees currently working for
and their addresses and where
their addresses,
what time they switch their heating on.
Yeah, and I can understand that as a tenant. I could understand that. I kind of go, well, what have you got? Although, if you still got the same amount of offices that you had
No, we
pre-COVID?
removed one.
Okay.
To be honest, we do use the office. Like people go in quite a lot, so I don't know where they got that from. But like majority is from home. But you know, you go in. We still use it to go in.
Yeah,
and
there's
stuff,
still
but,
people in the
it's still quite busy and stuff. But I don't know where they must have. I think it's one of those where like just something to be angry at, I guess. But I don't know. But it was odd.
I think the cost of living pressures
Yeah.
are getting people to question, understandably so, question their service
I can
charges
understand
much
Mhm,
more.
mhm.
And I say we're certainly seeing that, and you know, service charges part of the stairs stuff that's coming in that you have to sort of declare how you operate it. So I get all of it, but whether the control slips in terms of whether you can operate a business or you operate at the mercy of your tenants, I suppose, is the balance that we need to find. So because there is certainly a customer requirement, and you want it to be balanced, but also you still have a business that you've got to turn an operating margin and everything else on, haven't you? So awkward.
Oh, it is tough times, definitely. I'm go on.
Just get them to ask their solicitors what the word variance means and how much they charge for that on their letters, because that's far harder to actually pick out and say what that's for. Executive lunches, probably, he said cynically once again.
But it's definitely been a lot of that has been cut back, hasn't it? All the lunches and all that kind of thing. I just am looking at the forum to see if there were any other things that had sort of been asked. And who's responsible for stairs in your organisation is an interesting question that we're getting from DPOs. It does seem like a few of you have been given responsibility for stairs. So just a reminder, we've got a DiSH workshop on stairs. I know, Lizzie, I think you're signed up.
Mm-hmm.
It is now. Is it May? All right, is it this month? It's May.
It's
Sorry,
May, yeah, I think
it's
May,
next
yeah.
month, 13th of May. Yeah. So again, like all the workshops, you will have a takeaway from it. It won't just be me saying that this is what stairs might look like, because you know we're just going to have to go ahead as if, like you say, the last consultation is most likely what it's going to be. There's no point me telling you that. You know that better than I do. But it'll be about having an actual page of FAQs, lists of policies that I think are useful and likely to be what people are looking for, and the FAQs I think people are likely to be looking for. Again, so you're not starting with a blank page. It's just that thing if you sit down with a blank page, it's a nightmare, isn't it? I'm removed from it, so it's easy for me to kind of just draft something, and then you've not got a blank page and you can play about with that basically. So hopefully that will be useful, especially for those of you who are being dumped into it and just told, yeah, that's your thing now. Has anyone been using or referring to any of the stuff from the EDI strategy or the AI strategy workshops that we did, or were they a complete waste of time?
No, they were useful.
Thank you. I'm going to, when I put this out, I'm going to edit out that delay.
Pause. I was still thinking about a takeaway. You got me on a different line. I think that's what it was. But yeah, certainly I'm looking at the AI strategy. We're looking at things like purview and how we're going to operate certain pieces. And I think the prevalence of AI in just about everything. Surveys have got AIs now in them. So it's hard. It's more of an education than it is a prevention, I think. It's about,
we can stop people using it.
No, but we could try and say these are ones that are approved corporately and are safe to use, and use it in this way and in conjunction with this. But things like Copilot are already heavily in the mix with things, aren't they? And I've discussed with at least one other DPO about Copilot DPIAs who's on this call. But it's one of those tricky ones to do, because if you don't, it goes underground, doesn't it? And you suddenly find, if you go and sweep your web searches for ChatGPT, for example, it'll soon tell you whether people have adopted it or not. And so I'd rather have the open conversations. We have had some really good sort of chats than run the risk of having that. But we are in the process of doing an AI strategy and policy that will kind of tie things up a lot more neatly and have a process for people to go through if they want to use something rather than just not realising it and just jump onto a free website and go, use this. Yeah.
The customer details into it. Yeah.
Yeah, far away. Deep seek. Send them to China. It's great. No problem.
Yeah, the workshop I found very helpful. The only thing is I've not had any chance to implement because since November I've been doing DSARs constantly because we only have 2 people in our team because we have 2 vacancies. So both managers in the team are doing DSARs because we don't have any other stuff.
Wow.
And recruitment is a nightmare.
They won't outsource the DSARs for a bit.
They won't outsource it. They don't seem to understand the importance, the benefit of outsourcing against a manager's salary to do a manager.
Yeah, because then you can do like strategic stuff like AI and.
That's a thought.
Oh.
So yeah, that's
okay.
fun.
It is an industry thing though, isn't it? I mean, I know every time I go to sort of any kind of forum, people are talking about figures having doubled or worse in some cases, and certainly ours is just a constant upward trend. Yay! But more and more time is having to be devoted away from the proactive stuff and to the reactive stuff like the DSARs, and then the breaches and the incidents from everybody being exhausted from having to send the DSARs. So. Look, that's not true, the last bit, but there is some work fatigue. There's some work fatigue, I think, across the business from the last couple of years worth of nonsense, which is seeing sort of a rise in silly mistakes. So not people not understanding data protection, but just being too tired and sending silly emails to the wrong person because they're exhausted. I think, and that is the pressure from the ombudsman and the media focus that's triggered some of that. And your risk then as well. You're actually not going to have housing associations will struggle because they're too exhausted to deal with all the additional stuff you throw in like TSMs and everything else. And capacity hits a maximum and you start seeing it, the pressure crumble, I think, for some people.
Yeah, recruitment's really hard in the sector as well, especially for DSARs and information governance. It's so hard. We've had like 6 applicants and none of them had any DSAR experience, didn't even really know what personal data was. Yet they're applying for roles like that.
Oh. But there are people out there looking for work in, it's probably not paying enough, is it?
Yeah. They won't come into,
it's a risk.
Not many people want to come into the housing sector who are outside the housing sector.
Yeah. And that was the discussion on the social housing roundtable this week. I was travelling, so I couldn't actually talk, but listening to it was, it's that thing of in the housing sector, we kind of go, you can only work in here if you've got housing experience, but how do people get housing experience? And once we're in, most of us stay quite a long time. But from the outside looking in, most of us landed here by accident, didn't we? So you can sort of see people aren't going, oh yeah, when I grow up, I want to be in housing or data protection. Nobody's saying that, are they, as a kid? But my little girl does. She sits with a pretend laptop and goes, I'm doing data protection like mummy, because that's how
that's what my son
does.
My daughter definitely doesn't. Oh, Dad, can you stop going on about? Well,
stop going on about.
Mine is definitely older now. She just had a birthday. I won't declare it and disclose personal data on this.
Yeah, we don't need personal data. Yeah.
But
she's a teenager though, isn't she? A teenager, yeah. So she's not going to like pretend to be like Daddy and go.
No,
mine's only 6.
We just discussed social media, and she's like, "Oh, data protection, Dad." So. Do you know where that's going? Yeah. Do you know what server that's on?
but once we're in data protection or housing, a lot of us do stay, don't we? So there's something that holds on to us. But yeah, getting people to want to come into it is quite hard, especially then if the recruitment person's going, oh, you're not in housing, so you don't know. But you want them to know about DSARs if they're doing the DSARs. Oh, okay. I mean, you can train them to an extent, but Yeah, that takes time and money as well.
Understanding what personal data is, though, you would expect.
In the first place, yeah. I mean, you can train anyone to do a DSAR, but
you want the basics of data protection knowledge and data knowledge there.
Yeah, knowing what DSAR is, that it, yeah. None of us were born knowing about a DSAR, but if you're going into a job where you need to hit the ground running because you've got a million DSARs come in, then can understand that. Let me just have a look on what else have we been talking about.
The mind map that you did, Claire, the customer information data mind map, really helped me explaining to people about the purpose and the lawful basis. That's really useful.
Oh, good. Lizzie, you'll find once you get in and have a look at the DiSH stuff, we have a resources page that's just got, I just throw loads of stuff in there. I've put it in alphabetical order as much as I can. Never quite know sometimes what heading to put things under, but it's under alphabetical order, and there's loads of bits and pieces in there. When I've done a diagram, or I've done a guidance or a checklist or a prompt sheet of some sort, blog posts, a link to it, some stuff about books that are useful, all those kind of things are all in there together. And the EDI section is growing every day, because every time I have a conversation, I end up thinking, okay, what's another way that I can try and explain that? So that was where the mind map came from. So hopefully that's quite useful. What was the other thing I wanted to tell you about? Oh, the cannabis thing. I know, Sam, you were trying to get into the cannabis. I should explain.
Webinar.
No, I didn't explain.
The webinar.
Just as I was saying that, I was like, Sam wanted some cannabis, but we didn't have enough. So there was a panel run by the amazing Janine Green at Green and Burton ASB about ASB reports that are linked to cannabis. And then the kind of issue is that a lot of people go, well, I've got a prescription, it's medical cannabis use. And then that leaves people a little bit like, oh, what do we do now? Can we, still crack down on that? Some people are sort of, well, can we ask to see a copy of the prescription? Although when I discussed that on the panel, that, lawfully we can ask to see the prescription, the GDPR does allow it, the lawful basis will depend on the context. Somebody said, what's GDPR got to do with seeing a prescription? I was like, okay, well, it's because it's personal data. And someone else that thought they were being helpful says, no, that's got nothing to do with GDPR. It's the telling the neighbours that's the GDPR thing. And I was like, no, it's both. You can ask, and that's GDPR, but you can't tell all the neighbours they've got a prescription. That is also a GDPR thing. And from that, I was challenged with, so you're saying we just need to keep fobbing people off? Because they wanted to hear from me that, you can have a look at the prescription and you can, take a copy, write it down, do what you want, and then go and tell the neighbours. SARS can't keep complaining about the cannabis use because they've got a prescription for whatever medical condition. And I said, you can't do that. And they said that was this one of Joe's candidates?
Doesn't know about SARS, doesn't understand GDPR.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Made a connection.
Yes. That candidate. Yeah. What's that got to do with GDPR? But it brought it home to me that we do live in a little bit of a bubble as DPO people, that we do forget that people not in DP do not get the connection between working with customers or working with colleagues and data protection. And then even when they do see a connection, they only see the connection as in protecting the data, as in not sharing it with the neighbours, even though that pisses them off. But they're not seeing it as, should we collect the data in the first place? So that's something I still need to keep banging on about. Obviously, we all need to, I think, bear that in mind when we're dealing with housing officers, ASB officers, that they might not even think that as a question. might not even think, do we need to consider, can we ask to see this prescription? But the video from it is available now on Janine's website, so I have put the link to that in the resource thing. I think it's under C for cannabis, I think. No, it's not. ASB is under A for ASB. ASB linked to medical cannabis use. I also did one of the case studies, or I did a case study in the case study section, which isn't really a case study of one particular case. It's about all the key points that were raised. I suppose it's a case study off the panel, and a little bit of snark from me, perhaps, because it just blew my mind, some of those questions, and that, fobbing people off. Okay, so yeah, might have been a little bit snarky. You won't be surprised to hear, because it is me. But hopefully that'll be useful. Mm-hmm.
It is one of those common elements. I'm dealing with one at the moment where a neighbour's taken a photograph of somebody's back garden because of its condition. And like, well, okay, so can we use that? Can we process that if there's an enclosed back garden, or is the right to privacy mean that you shouldn't be taking a photograph of your neighbour's garden even if its condition is poor? Where do we qualify that under?
Why did they need to take a picture? Why couldn't they just have said? Yeah,
well, I think it's because we have a process that says, oh, have you got any evidence to support? So they go and then take pictures of it.
Okay.
And you're like,
I'd say it depends. Has it got anyone sunbathing topless in it? In the picture?
Just a dog.
Just a dog. Yeah. So, yeah, I probably would say that you can process it, but only as far as you need to be able to go, yeah, this is valid. This is a valid complaint. We've seen a photo, and then we don't keep the photo forever. But I know that once we've got stuff, we do tend to keep it forever, don't we?
But it's that element of, if you're in a back garden though and it's enclosed, as a landlord, you've still got to ask permission or make a notification that you're going to attend.
You're going to,
somebody just takes a photo of it. Does that breach the privacy element? What's our lawful basis for having the photo and processing it?
It would be contract if they are breaching their contract by having the garden in such a poor state.
Yeah.
But is it that bad? Like my next door neighbour, if the grass is a bit that long, he thinks it's a disgrace because he's got plastic grass.
Yeah, usually in these situations, you're talking like cigarette butts everywhere and dogs, and the condition.
So I mean, if it is something that would be breaching their contract, then yes, there could be. I think contract could be a lawful basis, but not to keep it on file forever and ever.
No. And it was an interesting one because for me, there's that balance of the privacy, isn't there? Is that you wouldn't expect someone to photograph your own back garden necessarily. Not you might be
probably would with my neighbour, but yeah.
I'm not sure I want to delve into that.
No, I know what you mean. And you don't want to set a precedent where the neighbour keeps doing it and thinks that you were, encouraging and oh, thank you for that photo. Have you got any more?
Yeah.
I suppose it would be if they raise a complaint and say the garden's really bad. I think that's the problem, isn't it? Where you're going, well, have you got any proof? It could be, well, have you spoken to them? Can we speak to them? Can we say, we've been told it's really bad, we want to check, and gives them a chance to tidy it up, doesn't it, as well?
Which may well be the case. But then you've got that risk where, in many of these tenants cases, maybe this is not the first time that that's occurred.
Yeah,
so there may have been previous discussions.
It's going to be context dependent. So, yeah. So yeah, it could, is the last resort getting a photo, or is it the first step? Is it in the process, have got evidence? So it's checking that, I think, what order things are done in, to have a little bit of that sort of leeway.
It's an interesting one because the police will have CCTV that perhaps hasn't been authorised, but they will still take it to court and it can still be used as evidence. So we've seen historical cases of those. It's not that I'm suggesting it's comparable, but
No, it is really, because they people have been told that they're being filmed, but that will come down to. I've clicked it. Yeah, that will come down to the judge not knowing or being interested in whether it was legitimate CCTV.
Yeah, it's a curious.
So, and the solicitor on the other side, so the defence solicitor, not knowing that that's something they can use to throw the case out or throw that piece of evidence out. So it happens a lot. I remember one case where there happened to be a solicitor on the other side who did know about the data protection bit, and the police and everyone else that was sort of relying on that CCTV was shocked and like, oh, right, you can get that evidence thrown out, can you? Because we didn't have any signs up that said we were using this CCTV, because they had a solicitor who knew what they were doing in terms of data protection. But usually it just slipped on by because nobody knew. The judge didn't know and the solicitors didn't know. So it's, again, our bubble, we think everybody knows this, but they absolutely don't. It does make you think, what do we not know that we don't know? It's interesting, isn't it?
I got a question quickly. So we're seeing an increase in CCTV requests, but they're actually coming with a statement of exhibit, so that they're allowed to use that CCTV request in court. They're asking, so they're asking us to do a statement of truth. So we confirm that the CCTV dated blah 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 was given to blah 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 for the purpose of blah blah blah, so they can use it in court as an exhibit. We see a lot of police sending these requests in.
That feels a little bit like they're trying to get you to do a bit of their admin. That's just my initial feeling, because once you give the footage to the police, they become the controller of it. And it's up to them to tell the court, this is a CCTV we received from Joe on this date at this time for the purposes of this. I feel like they're kind of pushing it back to you. I might not be right there, but it feels like it. Like all you need to do is say, this is what you asked for and this is what we've given you. As long as they have asked properly, they've asked for just a little bit of it, they're not fishing. Here's what we've given you. You're the controller now. You go and tell the court that the CCTV. I don't know. That's just that's where my starting point would be. I would have that conversation with the police next time I get something like that, and that would probably be my starting point. Or maybe even the solicitors, speak to your legal advisors about the court stuff and whether that does need to be your responsibility to say that it's legit CCTV. Because if it's only just starting now, it could be that the police start to push back and getting you to do the admin, because they've got resource problems as well. Let us know how that goes.
Is there any sector that doesn't have resource problems?
No. Absolutely not. Definitely not in the public sector. Oh, don't depress us. I read a Reddit post earlier today about, the programme Bluey, kids TV programme Bluey. It's like a little dog and her sister in Australia, and it's really sweet. It's a nice one. It's not like Peppa Pig. It's really nice. It's got those little jokes that adults get and the kids don't quite get. Just really lovely. And somebody saying, I've just read this thing about the people working on it. They were really badly treated and they had to rush and they had to get all this work done. And it just makes me feel so bad that such a nice programme had such unethical practices. I'm like, it's the real world. It's just because it's a nice TV programme for kids doesn't mean that it's all, sparkly and rainbows and like, oh dear. Anyway, so even Bluey has got resource problems. Oh dear. Oh, we've just ticked over onto 12. Has anyone got any other? Because I'm not chasing you out. I'll stay. But if has anyone got any more problems? Any more problems with Bluey? Have you got any more questions, comments?
I did have a really quick one. I think,
yeah, of course.
I think I probably have no leg to stand on with it, but it's probably more just a hopeful thing. But we got a SAR this morning, where it's like basically a candidate that had an interview with us, which I'm presuming they weren't successful. And they've basically done a SAR around the success of their interview, which I've never heard before. But it's kind of like, oh, I want to see the notes you did. I want to see what the emails about my interview, what data you shared about my interview, background checks you did. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, because I suppose I have to provide it, but I'm just a bit like, it's a new one. So I was just wondering if there's like some exemption where you're like, for this.
Your starting point is, yes, they've got the right to access. But the next thing would be they haven't got the right to duplicates. So bear that in mind. So you'll quite often get people asking for the handwritten notes, particularly because people might be a little bit more, unguarded in their handwritten notes. But if the handwritten notes have then been typed up and the gist is the same, they don't get both. Yeah. So you can choose which one they get. So you're going to give them the typed up version, aren't you? So bear that in mind, because that'll make a big difference. And there might be some stuff in there that's exempt. There'll be some third-party stuff probably that would be exempt. You would want to anonymise. Can you anonymise by just taking a name out, or do you need to take more than that out? Of course, is always the question.
Yeah.
But there might be an exemption for management, forecasting and planning.
Yeah.
You have to sort of be able to sort of point to what the issue would be. We just can't say, oh, everything to do with management planning is exempt. We've got to think about what it might actually prejudice, what might the problem be. So do look at the details of that exemption.
Okay.
Also, I would start with by managing the expectations of the requester, to let them know that you might have to apply exemptions. I mean, this is what we do in the acknowledgement email anyway, which you've probably worked on stuff with me before where we've done similar, where we've said, you don't get a copy of every single thing. You don't have a right to particular documents. You've got a right to the information. We will exempt other people's data. We will apply other exemptions, including management, forecasting and planning, for example. So just to manage those expectations.
Okay. Yeah.
That might help. Okay, anyone else want to throw anything else in there that I'm missing?
You might also want to talk to HR about its practices, because most people make those requests when they don't get feedback.
True. Yeah, good point.
Very good point. Yes. Yeah, what's left them feeling that they need to make this
Yeah. Good shout, thank you. Yeah.
That's a really good one. Thanks for that. Yeah, and let us know and give us a shout if it's anything.
Yeah, my gut was like, oh no, you're gonna have to do it. It wasn't like, oh, I hope I don't have to do it, but I was thinking, just because it's like a make it brand new scenario, I was had a bit of hope, but
well, the management forecast and planning will apply to some of it probably, so do have a look.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. Any more for any more?
All good from me, thank you.
Oh, good, brilliant. So good to see you all. I'm so glad people turned up. As I say, with holidays, I don't know if anyone's going to turn up today. Just sit and talk to myself for a while. Think about the cannabis stuff. You don't get a prescription for smoking it. That's the main thing I learned.
Yes,
so anyone that's sitting there with a spliff going, oh yeah, it's a prescription. No, it's not. You might have a prescription, but it's not for smoking it. So there you go.
You look really nervous there, Samuel. Oh yes, I've read that.
So what do you do with it then?
So you can vaporize it, which is different to a vape pen. which heats it up but doesn't burn it, and you breathe in the vapour. And it's flowers or buds rather than the leaf. Or you can have a vape pen where it's liquid that goes in the vape pen. Or you can have capsules of oil. So you just take them with a drink, or, you know, mix the oil into food or drink or whatever as well. So there shouldn't be billowing smoke from a spliff. And that's a prescription.
I've not had anybody come and ask me about it. I wondered if anybody else.
Well, go and ask your ASB people, because it does seem that in ASB circles it's a really, really big issue.
Well,
so yeah, and it's people like complaining about the smell, and then go, well, what can we do about it? Because they go, oh, it's a prescription, go away. So if you want to open that can of worms.
Yeah. Don't know if I do. If I'm honest. I've got enough on.
Maybe not this week.
Yeah. I'll stick with smart houses for today, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if there's sensors that would pick up cannabis smoke.
Who knows? That would be proper Big Brother, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
As an entire building goes off with alarms at the same time.
Looking at Gary's background again, there's a little bit smoky looking, isn't it?
It's for additional and research purposes, honest.
Honest. Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. And I'll share the recording as usual, and speak to you all soon.
Thank
Have a lovely weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good
Good one. Have a good Easter. Bye bye.